How's it going, everybody? My name is Rinzler here, back again for another video, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about my one and only time ever patrolling as a real-life superhero. A lot of you guys probably didn't even know this about me. People who've seen me in real life probably saw me wearing a mask or whatever, but they probably didn't know why I was doing that. This is why. It's because I was actually a real-life superhero for about a month. I only went on one patrol, um, and I'm gonna explain why in this, when I recount the story to you. But basically, I just felt like talking. I made one of these videos about my fan fiction writing career. So if you haven't seen that episode, go check it out. And just to clarify before I get into things, you might notice I'm using the word shoot in the title. I just want to let you guys know I don't mean that literally. This story has nothing to do with me shooting nobody. um, Basically, the term shoot is a wrestling term, a term I learned from WWE, which means like to tell the truth about something. So that's what shoot means. It doesn't literally mean shoot somebody. Just want to clarify that before I get into the story. So basically, I was at a real low point in my life earlier this year. I had, been struggling a lot with depression, and I'd been struggling with finding the will to survive or whatever. And I'd done things I wasn't proud of, things I wouldn't mention here on the channel, even though I trust you guys. I wouldn't tell those stories because honestly, I'd tried to forget about them myself. But anyway, I felt like I needed some kind of redemption because like not long before I went on my first patrol and became a real life superhero, I'd lost my faith in Christianity. So I was just at a really low point. Around this time, I rediscovered religion through Hellenism, which is belief in the Greek gods, which is a belief I still hold, by the way. Um, so anyway, I just kind of wanted to find some kind of redemption for the things I'd done by becoming a real life superhero. So I originally was going to take on the name of Lord Ikurai, and Ikurai is Japanese for love hater because at the time I had this kind of unhealthy mindset about love being destructive and whatnot. I'm not proud of it anymore. But anyway, I recognize the fact that that name was probably a little bit too villainous, so I changed it to Rinzler, which is a name that I've kept even after I'm no longer a real life superhero. And I got the name Rinzler from the movie Tron Legacy, which I believe is a really underrated movie, by the way. Maybe I'll talk about it in a video one day. I mean, I did name the chain. I did name this entire channel based on this character. Rinzler is basically this character in the movie who starts off as a villain, but he's being manipulated by another villain to do bad things. And by the end of the movie, he sacrifices himself so the heroes can get away. And, I was, as I just said, I was doing some bad things and I felt like I needed some redemption. So that's why I took the name Rinzler so I could find my own redemption or whatever. But instead of saving heroes, I became a hero in this case. Um, Basically, I had a partner when I was a real life superhero whose name is Adrenaline, whose real name I'm not going to say for privacy reasons, and I'm not going to show his face and no pictures either for the same reason. But basically, Adrenaline came to me about a year ago at the time I'm recording this video, and he started talking to me about the idea of becoming real life superheroes. And at first I said no because about a year ago I was actually in a really good place in my life. I was in a really strong relationship with this girl that I was considering even proposing to. That fell through eventually, but I'm not going to talk about that here. Um, but anyway, I was just at a really good point in my life when he started we started talking about that kind of stuff. So I didn't see a point in saying yes and risking my life doing that because I was having such a good life. It wasn't until I like broke up with that girl, like and stuff like that, I started going through depression and stuff like that. And I'd done some bad things and I wanted to make up for it. So that's why finally accepted his offer in early 2019. I think it was in about March that I accepted his offer. Yeah, it was in March. So in March, I decided to take up the name Rinzler, and me and Adrenaline became partners. We chose the team name Oblivion, but that wasn't always going to be our team name. Because originally our team name was actually going to be the Three Musketeers, because we had plans of asking another one of our friends if she wanted to join us as well. Because we were expecting her to say yes, because the three of us were so tight knit as a group or whatever, in real life. So we figured she was gonna say yes. But plans changed. She said no thanks because she had aspirations to join the military, so she didn't want to become a real life superhero. So it was just me and Adrenaline, and so we chose the team name of Oblivion. But I did kind of create like an homage of sorts to the original team name, because on my mask you can't really see it in the still frame, but at the very bottom you might see some English writing, and it says "All for one, one for all." That's what I wrote on my mask, as like a tribute to the Three Musketeers that never was, I guess you could say. Um, and then I had some Japanese stuff because at the time I was like a big weeaboo, I guess you could say. I hadn't watched anime in a long time, but I was hoping to move to Japan. I had aspirations of taking the real life superhero thing all the way to Japan. Uh, my plans of going to Japan ended up falling through because the people I wanted to go to Japan with, they ended up changing their post graduation plans or whatever. So now I know I'm not going to Japan ever, but at the time that's what I wanted to do. So I put some Japanese kanji on my mask, but I put my superhero name in English, Rinzler. Uh, I'm actually going to talk about the costume a little bit before I start talking about Patrol. The costume went through a lot of changes. Like when I first started wearing my Rinzler costume, I was wearing a hood instead of a baseball cap. And the reason I changed it, I should say, is because I was tying the mask in the back and it would come undone a lot because I didn't want to tie it too tight because I didn't want to like, hurt my face. So I wouldn't tie it too tightly, but when I was wearing the hood, it would come undone and I'd have to take the hood off to retighten it anyway. So since I didn't want people to see my hair, I'm a natural blonde, so I knew my hair would be a dead giveaway. So I wanted to cover my hair up somehow. So I started wearing a hat instead. That way I could still, access the tie on the back of my mask easier. And that's basically why that happened. And the leather jacket was just something I used to wear all the time. Like even when I finally made my return from like a brief hiatus earlier this year, I was still wearing the leather jacket. In fact, in my WWE 2K19 playthrough, I made my character I basically gave him my entire superhero outfit. The only thing I changed was that I had my character in the game wear tights instead of blue jeans, and I never put a mask on him, because I started to realize my mask was holding me back a little bit. But I'll get into that later. So basically, after I chose my outfit or whatever, me and Adrenaline were planning on learning how to fight. We were going to take classes or whatever. And me and him were already sword fighting a lot. We owned our own kendo sticks. We'd go out in the backyard and we learned how to sword fight. And we had plans of taking these thicker wooden blades with us on patrol because we'd hit each other with those wooden blades. We'd like barely tap each other and we'd still get bruises. Like if these things could break bones if swung hard enough. So we were planning on taking those on patrol with us because we didn't want to kill nobody, but we wanted to be able to defend ourselves. But we wanted to learn how to fight hand to hand as well. So we had plans of possibly taking classes and not starting to patrol until summertime. That was the original plan. But plans change, of course. Um, so basically, what happened was, me and Adrenaline, we were like brothers. So he would come over for sleepovers every now and again at my house, and he came over. He was really late this one time, and he was going through problems with drugs a little bit. So he comes over and he's like high off his rocker. He's so high he can't remember who he is. He can't remember who I am. You know, I actually had a little bit of fun with him. I tricked him into thinking he had no hair, which I kind of regret a little bit. I know I was being an asshole instead of a good friend, so I did apologize profusely afterwards. It's a little funny to look back on, but I don't know. I don't know. This story's not making me look so good, so I'm gonna move on. So basically, when he had stopped being so high, because like he puffed more than he normally did that particular day, And I'm not into drugs or anything, but I kind of treat marijuana like I would tobacco. Like, I think that people should know that they shouldn't do it, but I'm not going to outright say that they shouldn't. Like they should know that it's bad for them, but I'm not going to stop them from doing it. Like, so I treat marijuana like I would tobacco, really. I don't do that kind of stuff though because I actually care about my health. Thank you very much. Anyway, once he stopped being so, under the influence, I guess you could say, me and him went for a walk together because I knew the cool air would help. It would help him clear his head a little bit. So we normally would walk on this route throughout the city or whatever, and we would walk on this bike path. And I used to walk around in my mask everywhere when I was outside. Like it didn't matter where. I went to school in that thing. I took it off when I was inside, and I would just wear it around my neck when I was inside, or I'd put it in my backpack. But anywhere I went outside, I would always put my mask on. So I was wearing my mask. He was not, because he didn't own a mask yet. He actually would never get a mask because our time as Real Superheroes was so brief. I'll get to the story of why it was so brief a little bit later. But basically, we were just walking around town or whatever, so he could clear his head, and we go on this bike path that's in the middle of town, and we see this like blonde haired girl about our age, maybe a little bit older, and she's just like she's sitting there on the path, like sitting down on the grass. She's on her phone and she's crying, and adrenaline. If you ask adrenaline, then he'll say that she was laughing, and he'll also say that she was Latina and that her hair was dyed blonde. But considering the fact that he was just getting over being high, I believe my version of the story just a little bit more, if I'm being honest. And from my perspective, she was white, she was natural blonde, and she was crying, not laughing. And I made a point of staying there with that girl until I knew for sure that she was okay. And then me and Adrenaline continued down the path. And then while we're walking down the path, I lean over to Adrenaline and I'm like, all right, well, we kind of helped that girl, didn't we? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, maybe we could just, stay out. We don't have to go right back to my house. We can just stay out and, look around town. We can basically go on our first patrol right now if you want. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. So we get off the bike path or whatever, and we go to the skate park because it wasn't that far from the bike path. And I remember distinctly, like, Adrenaline didn't think that nobody was going to recognize him because he had his hair in a different style. Uh, you know, Normally he keeps his hair in like a ponytail, but that time he had his hair out. So that combined with the fact that it was dark outside, he was expecting that nobody was going to recognize him. Of course, since he didn't have a mask on, everybody recognized him. And since people knew that me and him were like close friends, basically brothers, they immediately knew who I was in real life. And I wasn't that mad about it or nothing because I didn't plan on keeping a secret identity or anything like that. Like, I knew, because like at this point in my life, I was basically suicidal. I didn't care about myself at all. You know, and looking back, I wish I cared a little bit more about myself while this was going on. But it was because I was because I didn't care about myself so much that I even agreed to do this in the first place. Because I didn't care if I was like hurt or arrested or killed or nothing like that. Because I was just so low. I was at such a low point in my life. Um, anyway, getting back to the patrol, because I don't want this to get too dark. Um, you guys aren't here for me to talk about my depression. You want to hear me talk about being a superhero. So basically, we go to the skate park, um, and we went to the top of the half pipe. There was nobody else there, and we see this McDonald's bag at the top of the half pipe, and I wanted to look in it just to make sure that nobody was hiding like a weapon or drugs in it or nothing like that. So we go in there, we look, it's just empty food garbage, so I put that in the garbage can. I remember distinctly we didn't feel like running down the half pipe again, so we just slid down to like a slide. And I remember that so vividly because we were trying to look tough like the entire patrol. But for that one moment, it was just like it was like flashbacks back to when I was in my sophomore year and I was trying to learn how to ride a scooter up and down a half pipe. It was flashbacks to like what it was flashbacks to me from like 2 years ago. So that was kind of weird because I used to slide down that same half pipe, um, when I wasn't ready to ride my scooter down the half pipe yet. So anyway, I actually ended up selling that scooter because I lost interest in extreme sports. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, so like after we leave the skate park, we started going more into the downtown area, which is an area I never really walk in, honestly, because it's crowded with people and cars, and there's no reason to really go there unless there's an actual location that you're looking for. Like if you're just going for a normal walk, I wouldn't recommend going to that area. In any city, really. In my city, I would never go there unless there was a reason for me to be there. Um, so anyway, so we go downtown and he's telling me maybe we should go check out the public library because, shady people are known to hang out there at night. And I'm like, okay. And but he starts going in the wrong direction. And so I tell him that I think the library is the other way. Excuse my voice crack. I start telling him that I think the library is not downtown, that it's in the area of town that we're already in. And he starts saying, no, it's downtown. I've lived here longer than you. Because he's lived in the city his entire life. I only moved to this city a few years ago. So, so me and him start getting into a big argument about it. And I'm like telling him, like, you're going to be wrong. And so I'm like, I follow his lead. We go to where he thinks the library is. And the entire time I'm telling him, you're going to be wrong. You're going to be wrong. And then he's laughing at me and he's like, okay, all right, if that's what you want to think. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna be laughing when we go there and the library ain't there. So we walk all the way there. We're arguing with each other the entire way. Keeping a lookout on the way. I had like this really high powered flashlight in my jacket pocket that I kept out this entire time. Looking in alleyways and stuff on the way there. We're still arguing whenever we get the chance. But it's playful argument. It's not like serious. Although I was getting a little bit flustered. That might have been because it was cold outside. I live in New England, and we were doing this in March. And March in New England is still really cold, and it was at night, so that made it worse. So like, it was cold outside, and we were arguing about where the library was, like children. It was kind of silly, but I remember it kind of fondly. So we go to where the library supposedly is, and I'm really mad to say that he was right and I was wrong. Looking back, I'm not that surprised that I was wrong. He had lived there his entire life. The city, not the library. So I felt like a stupid son bitch that night. Um, we looked around the library after that. We actually took a selfie, which I didn't want to show in the still shot because again, he wasn't wearing his mask that night, and I don't want to show off his face and identity to the world. I don't mind myself, but it's not my place to talk about Adrenaline's real identity. So, so basically, so we take a selfie, then we look around. There's nobody there. I don't believe we saw anybody there. Homeless people are known to sleep around there, but even if we found any, we wouldn't tell them to get lost because I have a soft spot for homeless people. Um, when I was younger, I had this aspiration of bringing in homeless people to my house and like nursing them back to health. But as I got older, I realized that was probably not the smartest idea I ever had. So I gave up on that idea. So anyway, we decided not to stick around downtown because we know that anything bad that happens downtown, the cops will just be able to handle. So we go back to where we live in the outer part of the city, and like on the way there, we're crossing the street, and there's this homeless drunk man. He's like an old man. He's moving really slowly. He doesn't seem like he knows what planet he's on, and he's crossing the street. He's going the opposite direction from us. He's crossing the street. And I remember me and Adrenaline wanted to just go ahead. I stopped him and I'm like, no, we got to make sure this guy goes all the way across because I'm getting really worried he's not going to make it. So we stand there and we just watch the guy to make sure he makes it all the way across. And thank the gods he did make it all the way across. Luckily, the light was red, so he had right away. pedestrians have right of way anyway, but it's nighttime and it's cold and people just want to get home. And the guy didn't know where he was going, I don't think. So I was really worried he was going to get hit. But luckily he didn't. And I remember my mom called me on my cell phone after that, and she's like, "Where are you guys at?" And I tell her we're on patrol. We're on unexpected patrol, and that's why we're so late. Because we've been out for hours by this point. Because we kept making stops to look in alleyways and like on side streets and just looking everywhere that we didn't think the police had already looked. Because this was like a Saturday night. We were expecting a lot of trouble, which we were really surprised we didn't find nothing really. Um, and she's like, "Well, you guys better get home right now. And next time you guys go on patrol, you're gonna tell me first." And I'm like, all right, I'm sorry. We'll head home right now." So we go home. It takes us a little while because we keep making stops. We bump into this other girl on the bike trail because we had to take the same bike trail to get home. And we bump into another girl. It's not the blonde girl this time. This girl was like goth. And Adrenaline tries to be really friendly or whatever, just to let people know that we're not the bad guys. And that's something that I was always really worried about. I was always worried, like, that since I wore darker colors or whatever, that people were going to think that I was a bad guy or like somebody trying to rob something. So Adrenaline would try his best to be friendly with people and just say hi to them. The goth girl, I remember, just stared at us a little while and then walked right past us. And I remember specifically that she actually looked back at us. Back at me in particular, I think, because I was the one wearing a mask and Adrenaline didn't have a mask. So, yeah, she was probably looking at me. At the time, because I was really desperate to find a girlfriend, I was tempted to go back to her, but I realized that we needed to get home and that she might have actually been scared of me. So I just kept going. I didn't want to freak nobody out. Um, you know, at the same time, I kind of wanted to intimidate as well. Like it's weird. I based my entire superhero persona basically on Rorschach from Watchmen, and but at the same time, I kind of wanted people to know that I gave a shit about them. Unlike Rorschach, who just did what he felt like, because he knew it was right. I kind of want people to know that I was trying to do the right thing. So anyway, I didn't want people to think badly of me or whatever. So anyway, we get back to my house. We did some fight training until we went to sleep, and we were like bone tired after all that walking and patrolling. Because at the time I was wearing hiking boots everywhere, and I wore these boots that were so loud, and that was on purpose. I wore these really loud boots because I wanted like people to hear the boots from really far away, and like I wanted them to send chills up people's spines. It was like an intimidation factor. I don't know if it worked or not. Again, I only wanted the one patrol, but I still wore them to school, so you could hear the damn things echoing all the way across the hall. Um, and even after that first patrol, me and Adrenaline had plans of going on more patrols. And I remember telling Adrenaline, like, "You stupid son of a bitch, you better be wearing a mask next week because I don't want people to be recognizing you because you said that you wanted to keep a secret identity." And he's like, "Yeah, I know, I do. I promise I'll wear a mask next week." So we made plans of going on patrol on weekends exclusively. And so we had plans of going on another patrol the next Saturday. But that never happened. This patrol that we had that night, that was our one and only patrol. Because basically, not only did we keep delaying the next patrol because we both kept getting busy with other stuff, but then, I realized that during that patrol, there was really not a lot going on. There was no, like, fights or whatever. There was no drug deals that we could see. There was nothing like that. There was no disturbances to be reported. And maybe it was the cops, because they were more professional than us. Maybe they were hearing about it first. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I just kind of wanted people to think of Oblivion, our team name. I kind of wanted people to think of Oblivion as like doing what the police couldn't always do. We went on foot on purpose so we could look at all the nooks and crannies of the streets. I want people to think of us as like a secondary police force almost. But we realized the police had things well handled in the city. They didn't really need us. And I started getting worried that more criminal activity would rise up just to challenge us, or that other real life superheroes would start popping up, and that more people would get hurt because of us. So me and Adrenaline made the decision to just quit being real life superheroes. And that wasn't the last time I wore the mask, though. I kept wearing that mask because it made me feel more powerful when I wore it. I didn't stop wearing the mask until about April or May. I think it was May I finally stopped wearing my mask. Um, and then I put it back on again briefly in late May, early June, because basically I started going on these quote unquote missions from the gods. Because, like, I had a dream one night that the gods were telling me I had to go out looking for a homeless girl that would need my help. And at the time, because I was so like, I was like a lovesick puppy at the time. I was convinced that like this girl the gods had told me to find in my dream was the girl that I was meant to be with. So I started going on all these quote unquote searches throughout the city looking for homeless girls or whatever, which sounds really creepy now that I say it out loud. Um, but I never did find nobody. But I went on like regular searches for about 3 weeks. Adrenaline even went with me, as himself. And I didn't wear my mask on most of the searches. I wore my mask on a couple of searches. But I finally stopped wearing my mask when I got worried that people were going to shoot me for mistaking me for a criminal. So the mask actually started to make me more scared than strong. So I finally stopped wearing the mask. And I think I'm better for it. I think the mask was kind of, keeping me all shelled up, so I'm happy that I'm not wearing the mask no more. I don't even show my face publicly all that often now. I don't post any pictures of myself online. I don't show my face in videos no more. So I think that's kind of ironic. It's like I went from one mask to another almost. And so yeah, that was basically the story of my first patrol, my time as a real life superhero. I did some good things, so I don't really regret my time as a real life superhero. We checked on that blonde girl, made sure she was okay. We helped that old homeless guy across the street. We did some searching and we had a lot of fun on that patrol. I only remember the positives. We weren't scared at all. We were on top of the world that night. I think that if we kept going, then something bad probably would have happened to us eventually. Um, but as it stands, I had a ton of fun doing that one and only patrol with Adrenaline. I am sorry to say that me and Adrenaline are not on the best of terms at the moment, I don't think. He's been kind of ducking me a little bit lately. Uh, me and him are just having some tough times. We haven't seen each other in weeks. I have a feeling that he's ducking me for whatever reason. I don't know what I've done. But I have a feeling me and him aren't going to be talking no more, which sucks because I considered him like a brother, especially because we won this patrol together. I actually did try to continue honing my observation skills in the weeks that followed this patrol. I started writing everything down in this journal. At school, I was just writing things down whenever I didn't have nothing to do. And I remember people got really paranoid about that because they were worried I was going to write something about them in the journal. And some people actually came up to me and they're like, and they start like yelling insults at me, and then they're like, "Oh, you should write that down in the journal now." And yeah, I was a pretty quiet guy during my senior year. I didn't talk a lot unless I was like talking to my friends. So I didn't say anything to those guys. I probably should have said some of those some bitches, but as it stands, that was the only patrol I ever went on. I toyed around with the idea of going solo, going on patrols by myself, but then I realized that would be a stupid idea because I'd probably get shot. And then I got over my depression, so I actually wanted to stay alive, and now I'm still a little bit depressed because I've been having problems lately, but they're not as bad as they were. So I'm happy to say that I don't think I'm gonna wear the mask again, and that's probably for the best. But I don't regret my time as a real life superhero. I had a lot of fun. And I know that there's veterans out there that have been doing real life superhero patrols for over a decade. And I salute you guys because, I'm sure that patrolling would have just gotten more dangerous. But I just wanted to share that story with you guys, my one and only patrol. Ironically, I was actually in really bad physical shape when I went on that patrol. I had gained a lot of weight from depression and stress. And I actually didn't actually start losing weight and gaining muscle again until after I stopped being a real life superhero, which I find to be really ironic because it was like after I got over my depression that I started to find motivation to work out again. So, so anyway, guys, that was the story of my one and only time on patrol as a real life superhero, Rinzler. I named my fan fiction writing account Rinzler Hero because I was still a real life superhero when I renamed my Wattpad account. So yeah, I basically just decided to keep the Rinzler name, just to keep the fond memories of my time as a real life superhero, as brief as it was. I have no regrets, and I think it was a hell of a fun time. So anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching this episode of Rinzler Shoots. I guess that's what the series is going to be called. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to give it a thumbs up, share this video with all of your friends on all of your various social media platforms. Ring that notification bell and let me know in the comments down below what you liked and didn't like about this video. And I'll see all you dudes and chicks in the next video.